The GUR program actually can do what liberal education is supposed to do, which is teach people to think in different ways and to approach questions from different angles.
For me, pedagogically, it's been really fun to watch other people's teaching styles. And I know when I teach, I'm definitely a pacer, and I walk everywhere, and I do a lot of gesturing, but it's been interesting to see how other people stay around the podium or rely less on PowerPoint and more on speaking. So that's been a fun experience for me, just seeing how other people teach.
I also like the way that Pete introduces material. Of course, he's very high energy, which is great, very exciting, explosive, especially in these big classrooms where you wonder if they can see you. But he introduced material and then consistently went back and recapped, summarized the main points and the significance. And then at some point he would ask them, now, what are the different types of eruptions? Okay, and go through it with them and make sure everyone had listened to what he'd said and then recapping, summarize, and then moving on to mitigating volcanic disasters, for example. That is very powerful and very important in these GUR classes where you have a lot of freshmen and sophomore who again are being rocked by all of these different approaches and different disciplines.
I think one of the most inspiring mini courses I've seen was Pete Stelling from geology. And Pete's approach to teaching is very much to engage his students. And he engages his students by storytelling. He is a great storyteller.
Kendra uses the small group practices for these large surveys, and I was really intrigued with that practice and have been thinking ways in which I can incorporate that into my large lecture classes.
You know, as I point out, I think of lots of things that I do. So if it's going to these presentations or seeing a speaker on coming to campus or going to a conference and seeing other presentations, you know, it's odd because normally I just go, well, I'm just going to go into this because I'm just sort of interested, and I am, and I'll just listen to it and be surprised how much going to a presentation where I go, well, this is really above the heads of any of my students, will filter down eventually into a lecture, as an example, that people will kind of find fascinating. And I don't know where that really comes from, other than the fact that, you know, it just sort of sits in my head for a while, and I can make these connections and then eventually, hopefully, pass that on to people. But you know, if you were to say, well, now that you know this, exactly how are you going to use this particular information? I have no idea how I'm going to use this particular information. It just seems like I do, and you know, usually it strikes a chord with someone, and that's.
I think that this has been a really tremendous learning opportunity and a really tremendous cross-cultural and cross-disciplinary opportunity for us to meet some really terrific teachers on campus. And I'm proud to consider these people my colleagues, and I'm having a lot of fun learning from them.